Awesome. Well, thanks everyone for joining. It is 11:05 Mountain, 1:05 Eastern, and it's May 31st. Tomorrow is, in my mind, officially the first day of summer. So, and today we have a really fantastic presentation by some folks from AAAS on the project that they've been working on, how we respond to climate stories. So we have a presentation, but first let's see if there's any announcements people want to share. Frank.
Nice to be with you all. So I have a community ask. One of my functions is to report for the United States on through the national communications process, what we do on climate education, training, workforce development, capacity building, community engagement, public awareness, access to climate information every 4 years. Because we didn't do this in regular order under the previous administration, we're playing catch up. And so the next round of this is due December 31st this year. We just submitted the last one in November of last year. So we're doing another, that was the catch-up one. Now this is the regular order one, but because we just submitted it, we didn't realize we had. Bottom line is I now have to write another draft on what we're doing. And my first draft is due July 1st or early July. It's not the final draft, but I highlight not just federal government activities, but national activies that happened between 2021, beginning of 21, through to the time of writing. So most of 22. So, you know, this presentation, for example, if you had significant things that were going on during that period of time, I might be able to highlight those. I'll put in the chat the 7th report, so you can see the chapter 9 is it'll be the same architecture, but the substance will change. But again, it's all of 21 and what we have up till the time of writing or the last edit in 22. So anything anybody has that is considered, let me know. I'll try and work it in. But I want to represent what we do, not what the federal government does. Okay.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Announcements? No, I have a quiet one.
Hey, Katie, don't you want to say anything about the clean review camps? I mean, they're coming up.
Yeah, I was wondering if I was going to do that today or wait till we went through one of them, but since you mentioned it, yeah, we actually have a review camp coming up on Thursday. We actually have 2 review camps this year because we have so many resources to try to get through. So we're having one on Thursday, another one on Monday the 13th. We're reviewing 100 resources to try to put them in the clean collection. And I'm excited this year because we are, if any of you have done review for us and wondering why I didn't reach out to you, don't worry. You're still on my list. I will reach out again in the future. We got a bunch of new folks. We needed some help with the actual cycle process, and we got a bunch of responses, which was really exciting. So we're trying to kind of expand our reviewer list so that we have more people that we can engage in the future. So we actually have a bunch of new folks participating in these review camps this year. So I'm pretty excited that we've just done a really nice job over the last year or so of trying to expand the number of people that we get involved with the process. So yeah, I think it'll be fun, and I'll let you all know the results once we go through the review camps, how many things we actually passed into the catalog. So thanks for.
I'm also sorry, this is a little backwards, but there are a couple of people here that I don't know if I've met. So I'm wondering if a quick round of introductions would be good. If everyone is agreeable to that. Especially since we have our speakers here too. I'm sure they'll introduce themselves, but it might be good for them to know who's in the room as well. So I'll go first. My name is Gina. I am the Clean Program Coordinator. I work with Katie, who's just talking about the review camp. We are based at the University of Colorado Boulder at the Cooperative Institute for Research in Environmental Sciences. And yeah, excited for everyone to be here. I will elect Carrie to go next. Oh, for some reason we can't hear you. It's okay. Maybe just in the chat. Yeah, that sounds good. How about Hannah?
Hi all. I'm Hannah Cook. I just finished my second year of PhD work in science ed. Previously, I taught high school bio and environmental science. And this is my first clean teleconference, so hello. I'm really interested in environmental science and environmental issues in K-12 ed. So thanks for letting me join. I guess Frank, I don't know.
Sure. Frank Niepold. No, I work at NOAA's Climate Program Office. I'm the Climate Education Coordinator there. I'm doing lots of other stuff. So it's I don't want to chew up all the bandwidth to do this, but from international to national to federal to an agency to partner network and back. So Hannah, this network is for everyone. So you don't have to, we're not letting you in. This is your network just as much as anyone else's. So thank you for joining us. Oh, I got to choose somebody. Let's go, Carrie.
I don't think Carrie's audio is working.
Oh,
put it in the chat.
Why don't we go Elena? If I got this pronunciation right, hopefully.
You did. So I'm Leah Lowry. I'm the Director of Programs and Outreach for the Climate Initiative. Hannah, you're not alone. This is my first time here as well. I met Frank at NSTA and got me into this. So thanks we're a national nonprofit working in climate education. Our age range is 13 to 23. So.
What about?
And
Carrie?
I was supposed to pass it. Sorry.
All good. No worries.
Is it Reese? Reese? I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly.
So I'm Reese Cloyd. I'm the Director of the Center for Public Engagement at AAAS, where I lead a number of our science communication and public engagement programs, as well as AAAS's How We Respond initiative, which we're going to talk about later today. So I will pass it to Eric.
Thanks, Reese. Hi, everyone. Eric Havel from Oakland, California. I'm a climate science educator. I've been sort of in that space for the last 25 years, mainly community science programs and informal education centers like museums, science centers. Welcome to the new folks. I'm K-12 and also adults too. So this is a great space for both Leah and Hannah. Thanks for joining. I'll go to Jim Callahan, another climate science educator and friend and colleague.
Hi, Eric. Thank you. So Jim Callahan, Mobile Climate Science Labs. Guess we all get to pick what we want to mention about what we do. Well, one of the things we very proudly do is anytime AAAS is in California or at Washington, D.C. with a conference, we check in and see how's Family Science Days going about the public events and make sure that you have plenty of booths on climate change and action, which is something I was planning to do this week. So I don't know if it'll be talking to you, Reese, or Alana, but that's a subject. And let's say that is a very strong connection for the Clean Network and AAAS. That's a chance to be out in the public wherever AAAS is in the conferences, not just scientists, but the general public as well. So let's see, Emily, have you gone?
I have not. Thanks, Jim. My name is Emily Snowd-Brenneman. I work as a program specialist for the UCAR Center for Science Education. We're based in Boulder, Colorado, but do work nationally and collaborate internationally too. Especially with we work with Globe a lot, and then we we also work a lot with communities, especially in Louisiana as well. Yeah, we have a lot of resources on our website. We do and develop a lot of K-12 resources. And we also have a undergraduate to graduate bridge program called SOARS as well. That's within our lab and team. And let's see, who has not gone yet?
I think so, Alana or Katie.
Alana, I'll go Alana. Yes.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Alana Kimbrell with AAAS. And yeah, I work at the Center for Public Engagement with Science and Technology with Reese, and happy to be here with you all today. And thanks to Jim, a while back we reconnected and kind of reignited the idea of talking with you all about this project as well. So Katie, did you not actually introduce yourself yet?
I didn't. I did my announcement, but didn't actually introduce myself. Thanks. I'm Katie Boyd. I'm the CLEAN program manager. I work with Gina and a couple other folks. Where CLEAN is based at Ceres Education and Outreach, which is a cooperative institute for research in environmental sciences based at the University of Colorado in the Boulder area. So I use she, her pronouns. I am on the traditional lands of the Arapaho, Cheyenne, and Ute peoples. Yeah, CLEAN is the educational side of CLEAN that we manage a lot of is a database of over 800 resources for teaching about climate and energy topics in the classroom of various types. And then we also do PD, professional development and other guidance for teachers to bring climate and energy topics into their education work. And then on the other side, we host the CLEAN Network. So, but it's really a community effort, obviously, and you all join and help us keep things going. But we just sort of set up the calls and make sure it keeps running. So nice to have you all, and I'm glad to be here and part of this community, and nice to have some new folks this week. So
Sweet. Yeah, thank you everyone for doing the intros. We do have a presentation, so I want to get to that, but again, offer if there are any announcements. I saw that Eric is, he put a file to the Climate Science Institute that is happening this summer.
Yeah,
in the chat.
Yeah, thanks, Gina. It's a 2-day institute for K-12 educators, formal, informal. We're going to be covering topics including sort of visualizations and mapping tools, climate storytelling. So I'm looking forward to the presentation from AAAS team. Just a clients 101. We're getting a lot of folks that are just interested in some of the basics. And it's really an institute aimed at the educators as learners and not just teachers. So it's not just about giving activity ideas, but actually about building their own climate understanding and literacy. And it's going to take an interdisciplinary kind of an approach too. So it's not just for science educators.
Thank you.
And it's in the Bay Area on UC Berkeley campus. It's an in-person event too.
Love that. Anyone else? Last call before we jump into our presentation. Okay. I want to give our presenters enough time to be able to share what they're going to share. So we have Reese and Alana today joining us from AAAS. They're going to be talking about a project that they're working on and seeing if they can get input from CLEAN, which is very exciting. And they'll tell you all about that. So without further ado, Elena and Lisa's turn, and let me know if you have tech issues. That I see the slides now. It looks good.
All right, thank you. So Alana and I are going to tag team a bit. I'll do some introductions to the project, and then Alana will take us deeper into what we're doing with the project and lead us in a conversation to get your input on some of the things that we might do moving forward. So overall, this project is called How We Respond, and it's really focused on how communities and scientists are working together to respond to climate change. So you can go ahead to the next slide, Alana, that's fine. So this project is housed within AAAS Center for Public Engagement with Science and Technology. Our center is focused on finding ways to support, elevate, and encourage dialogue between science and society so that science and the broader civic society can be in conversation and are drawing upon relevant expertise and experiences with the goal of ultimately moving forward in a way that science is supporting all of the decision making that is happening within society. So how we respond is one aspect of what we do, sort of helping to shine a light on or highlight the ways in which those conversations are already happening and showing what some of the outcomes of those conversations has been. You can see a lot more about our program if you go to AAAS.org/PES. Go ahead to the next slide. So AAAS has been working in the climate communication space for quite a while. In 2014, we had a report that came out called What We Know, focusing on the reality, risks, and responses to climate change, and really on sort of the first two of those most heavily, the reality of climate change and the risks that it poses for our society. The third R, that response, was fairly light touch, essentially saying that we know from scientific evidence that the sooner we act, the more choices we preserve for ourselves, and that there are many ways that we can respond, but it didn't really dive into what those responses might look like. And that led us in 2017 to launch the How We Respond project. So this project was meant to really, as I said, shine a light on or elevate what is already happening across the United States in terms of what communities are doing to respond to climate change, and particularly how scientists and communities are in conversation with one another, collaborating with one another to identify potential solutions and put those solutions into action. So as a part of the How We Respond project, we have collected at this point 24 stories from across the United States, showing how scientists and communities are working together, showing a wide variety of response options, some more in the adaptation bucket, some more in the mitigation bucket, many of them bringing in response options in both of those. And what we've done is try to assemble these stories in a way that is, I would say, more journalistic than science-y. They very much are showing the underlying science for response options. They're showing the role of science in those activities. But the way that they are written is more like a feature article that you might find in the newspaper, a spotlight story that you might find in other more popular texts. And then we also commissioned a series of short documentary films to accompany several of the stories. I think we have now, is it 8?
I think nine short films, yeah.
Yeah, so we have 9 short films to go along with those stories. And then we also have the stories themselves. And we also have a number of other like still photos, again, helping to show what response options actually look like. We also put together a summary report that goes through the ways in which communities are trying to respond to climate change, what the different options are, and how those collaborations between communities and scientists have come together and might continue to come together in the future. The other thing that we have done for this project is put together resources for what you can do. So readers of the report, individuals, communities that might be thinking about how they can have conversations about climate change and climate change responses. What are things that they can do to get those conversations started or to support conversations that are already in place? And those resources range from highlighting some of the things that have been developed within the CLEAN network, so how you might work in educational settings, to ways that individuals might think about how they communicate about climate change, to planning resources available through government entities like NOAA and others that actually are helping communities plan for and take action on climate change. So I'm going to turn it over to Alana now to talk a little bit more about the project itself.
Yeah, thank you. So well, I just wanted to highlight, this is sort of a overview of one of the map we have of different communities that we highlighted. And we really wanted to focus in this project on reasons to hope, right? Giving people inspiration and that this is already happening. They can do it too. These are many different ways you can do it. Find yourself in one of these stories. And we wanted to kind of show that taking action on climate change is not about losing something, right? This is one of our main points, that there are many co-benefits of taking climate action also, and that these communities are stronger because of it, not in spite of their actions. So I'm going to share a video, one of our films. So this will be close to 5 minutes, and then we'll do just a couple more slides. Hang on a second.
Everyone around here has the same experience that I do, that it's flooding more than it used to. Yeah. Personally, I have been making decisions to address climate change. But for this project to be successful and for this project to have impact, it doesn't matter what's causing the water to rise. It's an issue we have to deal with, right? Because of the unique shape of the Georgia coastline, we've really been protected from major hurricane impact for as long as people have lived here. But in the last couple of years, things have changed. Because we had evacuated the area, we were watching it on a remote camera. The other thing I was watching, and we all were in this community, watching the official tide gauge at Fort Pulaski, which is about 10 miles from here. From the data we could get, from what we could see, this storm shouldn't have been even as bad as the year before, but in fact, on the ground, reality was a significantly greater flooding event. So, I said, hey, wouldn't it be nice if we had more than one sensor location on the Georgia coast? Because clearly there are a lot of different stories to tell about water level and what the impacts are from these storm events.
This smart sea level sensor program, they embarked on this program to put anywhere up to 100 or so sensors all throughout the coastline of Savannah and surrounding cities, with the idea of once the network is in place, we'll have real-time measurements of the rise and fall of the sea level.
So the steps to go from idea to deployment was a lot of just sharing the idea in the community, getting people to sort of give us feedback on whether this made sense.
Growing up, my friends and my brothers and I, we used to laugh at studies that were put out on almost anything, because we would always look at each other and say, well, they've been doing this study for the last year and they're talking about the results. Did you get a call? No, I didn't get a call. Did you get a call? No, I didn't get a call. Because they never called the Black community. What actually happens is the scientists will come in and do a study and then go back and write their report. They get tenure, and that community never sees that scientist or that professor again.
The impacts of storm events, those kinds of things are deeply personal to me. And the piece that is we really drive home with this project, this is a permanent installation for use by the local community.
Well, the city of Savannah, thankfully, suggested they contact Harambe House. One of the reasons why we like their program is that they want to interface with the community and the community residents on, what they're doing, how they're doing it, and hey, maybe you might want to be involved,
So the community response has been phenomenal. It truly is what keeps us going.
We jumped at the idea because now it looks like there are some results that's tangible for these communities, and that they're feeling like, okay, maybe I am being heard. And all right, this data that we're now collecting on the sea level rise, we're beginning to see a pattern that we want to break.
It always works better if you meet people where they are with the problem they have today and talk about how we might help address that problem. And if the problem they have today is there's flooding that's happening more often, then that's something we can address.
If we can finally show the west side of Savannah that all these years of studies and people coming in and asking questions, that it results in having some of these hazards mitigated, then, you know, it's only a win-win-win for Savannah and all its people.
Okay, so that's one of our stories that we put out in 2019. And let me just check my slides here. Yeah, so after we had our first stories put out in 2019, which included the bulk of them, 8 films and a bunch of other stories as well, we also developed a climate conversations guide and a climate conversations workshop, because we already do workshops for scientists around the country in communicating science. And so we created a module specifically on climate change communication. And we incorporated, of course, examples and videos from this project as part of that workshop that we've been giving. And a big part of what we share with that workshop is that, talking about climate change really makes a big difference, right? And I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but that is one of the key things that we want to promote with this kind of campaign, is that people really don't think that their friends and family care as much about climate change as they do, perhaps because they don't hear them talking about it. And it's sort of a cycle like that. So again, this is, we have the workshop and this conversation guide. We have a sort of worksheet version of the conversation guide that goes through kind of planning for having a conversation with a community or someone about climate action, different things to think about as you're thinking about that conversation, and resources that we link to in there. And then we have a longer version, it's like close to 10 pages, where we have more research and resources for planning for climate conversations and engaging with the community and trying to figure out how you might engage. So those links were in what I shared with Gina, but I can put them in the chat after this as well, or Reese can, to share those guides. We're definitely open to input on the conversation guide. The longer version especially hasn't really been shared that much. So we are interested in ways to make that more useful or to work on that further. So we'll share one more short film here before we kind of turn it over to open conversation. This film was from this past summer, 2021, but this just shows in the slide kind of what the written story looks like. On our website, we have the story, and then we also have a downloadable PDF that people can print or whatever to share with the fact box with highlights about the story and so on. So we want to just kind of give you an idea of what that PDF version of the stories look like. So here is the other film. Hang on. Sorry.
I didn't know anything about asthma until I married my wife. Her and her siblings, it's 5 of them, and then my children. To see my wife, to see our twins have an asthma attack and be grasping for air, something that if you don't have asthma, you take it for granted. You just draw a breath in, you don't even think about it. That's scary, it's terrifying. And to think that many, 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 many children have this issue because of what we're allowing in our air. And you think, wow, what can be done about that?
Everyone has heard about the climate crisis, and certainly St. Louis is no stranger to global warming, and this is the heartland. We are very, very closely tied to fossil fuels, and coal in particular. Burning fossil fuels, as everyone knows, creates an awful lot of greenhouse gas emissions and also contributes to poor air quality.
We have bad air because of the coal-fired plants, high asthma rates, and a lot of times there was this belief that environmental issues were left to basically upper middle class whites. But ironically, as myself and other churches are learning, these environmental issues affect everyone.
In my 12 years here, I don't think I have ever heard anyone say the environment is not important, I don't care about climate. That is not the issue. People do care, but they care about other things even more. And so the really important thing is to identify what are those things that carry the most importance, to see if we can do both. So solar energy, for example, if you can address some of the clean energy at the source, then you're going to have some spillover effects down the road to that child not having acute asthma incidences.
My predecessor had a huge imprint in this community, huge responsibilities, huge commitments. And so I just stepped into those things running, trying to serve as best I could. And part of that expansion on that service was into the spaces of sustainability and environmental justice. As they were considering me for pastor, I said, hey, look, the trend is there's gonna be less members in churches inhabiting these beautiful places. How do you sustain it to where it's still gonna be there for the community? Well, my thought was decrease expenses. And so I proposed, hey, we would get solar panels. So after we got the solar panels, we saved $3,000 a year, period. So it's advantageous. And as the word get out, then other churches want it. And my thought has been, why can't New Northside be an example, be a model for other African-American churches, other churches of color, of lifting up environmental justice, green theology, sustainability. And so as I learned more, I wanted to do more.
Really, the heart and soul, what has made the sustainability program, all of it, including the climate program, successful, is the willingness of the people within the community to be a part of the solution. We're not nearly where we want to go, but as we have laid a very strong foundation, the city is without a doubt a leader in the Midwest, sometimes a leader in the country in what it's doing.
You know, the idea that St. Louis and then even African-American churches would be part of cutting edge, the new era, I wouldn't expect that. I don't think a lot of people in St. Louis would expect that. But St. Louis is a great place because there's an ongoing battle for it to be better. You know, and so it's a place where there's change here, it can affect the whole country.
Okay. So I just had a couple more slides. So we actually have had a couple of our films. This one we just watched from last year made it into the Climate Action Film Festival. So that was exciting. And then another of our films from 2019, The Oyster Farmer, has actually been now in like 4 different film festivals. So that's been one way that we've been sharing these. And we also worked with the University of Washington to create this sort of STEM teaching tool. You can see an image of it here for talking about climate change. And it gives sort of examples and links using the How We Respond resources. And oops, sorry. Yeah, so we've also presented at different conferences and to share this. But we're really interested in hearing feedback. I mean, if you have thoughts about the specific films that we watched, of course, we're open to talking about that. But we were thinking about questions like, you know, if as you're watching this or seeing these kinds of materials that we're talking about, you know, what light bulbs go on for you, if any? Is there any anyone else that you think that we might want to talk with who is doing similar work, or the ways that we could package this material that would make it more useful for educators? So I'll pause there. And Reese, if you also want to kind of add anything as we open up the conversation, please feel free.
So the only other thing, I was actually going to go to Jim's question in the chat. So he had asked, what age level does it show that there might be teams of people capable of contributing to practical, serious action? And we do have a couple of stories that specifically call out the role that middle and high school students are playing in these conversations. So one of those, and we'll drop the links here momentarily, but one of those is focused on food waste solutions in Clallam County, Washington. And then another is focused on some of the work that students in Jackson, Mississippi are doing, and sort of the role that they're playing in some of the conversations in their communities. And then actually the story that we saw the video from for Savannah, there are high school students who are part of actually building some of those sea level rise sensors. And so I think that there are some really active ways that students are a part of this, oftentimes sort of in collaboration with adults, either teachers or agricultural extension agents or others that are working on these activities. So I think the stories that we tell are mostly about sort of the role that kids are playing in activities that have been organized by adults, but I think there are also many stories out there beyond How We Respond that talk about the role children and young adults are playing in being leaders of action in their communities.
Awesome. Thanks for that response. Oh, Frank, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, no, I very much appreciate this, and it's good to be back together again. It's been a little while. I'm so glad to see that this work has continued from when it began. So what I'm thinking about is the important work that you're doing here to raise the visibility of one, that we're already deeply in the work of dealing with climate change, and normalizing that in powerful and surprising ways in communities is an incredibly important strategy, especially with the co-benefits, whether it's public health, economic, jobs, all that. However, well, I think one of the challenges you're going to face in this work, that you're probably already facing, and maybe you're asking us to help you with, is connecting the stories that you have with people, like the actual getting people to connect. I mean, those two stories you shared with us, they brilliant, wonderful. But where they really become brilliant and wonderful is when they are seen by people in Savannah and St. Louis, or seen by other communities, are like, wow, that's an important story for us. We could do that too. Just like what the pastor said in his story about, you know, all African-American churches. But that last bit, oh boy, that's hard. So what strategies have you employed already, or what partnerships have you employed already to kind of get it beyond, you know, what you've done so far? It's such an important story that is just not adequately told yet.
Yeah, I think you've really hit on the head. One of the things that we have thought a lot about with this project, which is as we were planning out the project, we heard over and over again that people knew that there were responses to climate change happening out there, but they didn't actually know how to talk about them because they didn't necessarily have good examples. So part of what we wanted to do was provide some of those easily graspable short stories, videos that somebody could grab onto and say, okay, here's what they did in Dane County, Wisconsin. This is how they are thinking about changing over their vehicle fleet, or this is how Clallam County, Washington has thought about food waste in their schools, to provide that sort of first level of inspiration. We know that we're not going to be able to tell every story, and we know that we are not going to be able to walk alongside of every community that wants to take action. And so part of having these stories is to be a tool for people who might want to have those conversations. And so the workshops that Alana talked about, where we're working with people to think about what conversations they might have in their own communities, is one way that we want to essentially have these stories be a resource for others who then move out and are working within their communities. So part of what we're doing in this round with you is to let you know that these resources are available. And then we're also thinking about how we can create or leverage existing partnerships to, again, sort of have these be that initial inspiration or initial fodder to start a conversation in another community.
And I would just add, I mean, we've done some things to your point, Frank, about, we've done some online events and Facebook Lives, and shared with the contacts that we have from these stories in their, in St. Louis, so that they can really use it and share with their networks and communities, and try to help them with doing that as much as possible. But it takes, in terms of, we have 24 stories, right? So like going into each of these communities or sharing these really, really widely takes a level of effort that we have, we're still thinking about how to do that strategically, honestly. So that's part of what this conversation is about. And we did a media outreach effort in the beginning, but that's stopped. Sorry.
Super helpful answers. I'll think about how to help. I mean, knowing those 24 stories exist gives me some ideas of how to help you. So thank you.
Let's go to Leah next.
Hi. So this is first of all, just kudos. They're wonderful, those videos. And just to give a little background about TCI, part of what we do is empowering youth to action, local action in local communities. And that's our mission. And we do that through education. We have education materials. We actually have a series of videos of scientists working, and then community conversation guides that go with them, that we have land trusts and youth leading these community conversations. But what I think could be really cool, and maybe it's a longer conversation, in the learning labs that we provide to teachers, and we're in 38 states, I think now, there are sections for local action, and every lab ends with an action project. So, I mean, I don't know if you're game for that, but it could be something where we can highlight these videos as ways that communities are taking action. I know with our class, the pilot class, Gulf of Maine Field Studies, we highlight all sorts of solutions that people and communities are doing as the kids are designing their action projects. And so it's I love what you're doing. I love that there are subject matters that align with what we have out there. And the whole point of what we're doing is trying to have our youth become solutionaries in their communities. So I don't know if that would help in any way. We also have regional coordinators on the ground in certain areas that are helping to engage communities in these conversations and engage them in these action projects. So I don't know if that would be helpful or not, but I just wanted to throw that out there because it seems like a very close alignment as to what we're doing. And We're all about not reinventing, but amplifying those people who are doing the work also and being able to collaborate.
Thank you. Yeah, follow up.
That was really great question, Leah. I'm happy that you guys are here today. Let's go to Carrie next.
Let's start with if you can hear me. I think the answer is
Yes.
yes. I just want to start by saying that I found the videos to be incredibly well produced and the stories are really impactful. I love that there's a variety of stories from a variety of regions. I just love them. In regard to your question about packaging, when I view these stories, I see them as entry points for students. And I love that there's already differentiation, videos and articles. Many students respond to narratives as a point of entry into their units of studies. And so I can imagine these being used as a prompt in order to deeply study the specific impacts and then also the science behind those impacts. And one way I see it as being packaged is as part of a design project. For example, the Savannah story could then be tied to a design project where students learn about climate change, they learn about sea level rise, and then maybe from middle school, they're learning about designing flood barriers. And for high school, they're learning more about actually monitoring the sea level height. And part of that could then be a community conversation about climate change, which you already have the guide forms, but changing it into the form of a talking circle, which is like just a very structured social emotional learning opportunity. So I think there's a ton of opportunity here for you.
Great, thank you, Carrie. I'll get your email too.
I'll put it in the chat.
Thanks.
But yeah, feel free to put your emails in the chat. Jim has his hand raised too. Let's go to him next.
Great, thank you. So let's see. One is, of course, we're always a big fan of what AAAS does, and no disappointment here. How much is this fair to say that that how we respond can serve as a hub, a place to find what people are doing to take climate action? That is something that our organization has come to the conclusion that's very important right now. It's a lot of work to be a spoke, to be an example, as our organization does. And that's its own specialty, but there needs to be hubs for the spokes. There need to be places where we can share with each other and find each other and do promotion and so on and cross promotion. So I'm just saying, I'd like to regard how we respond as such a hub, maybe one of the leading hubs, maybe the leading hub, right? I'm encouraging others to play this role. So anyone who does it, that's great. So that's a question. Two is well, just kind of amplifying that education itself around STEM and science is itself an action, and recognizing that AAAS has been a leader in that in another way, that since 2007, AAAS was soon after, before that, was the first really to get things going with STEM events, public events, STEM festivals that now have taken off. Now STEM festivals, science festivals are widespread across the country, and climate change is an important subject in it, but AAAS helped to make that happen. So it's not just, if we regard education, science education and action itself as a form of action, then AAAS has long been a leader in climate action, long before we even talked in these terms. So I want to recognize it. And just the other one is I want to recognize, and this is one I would want to come to you and help on it. You have speakers and things to making sure that in our STEM educators, that people of color are represented. Because if people of color are not the teachers, are not the people who are out in the public, that is a signal that this is for white people. If you want to become a scientist, you better be white, and it's better if you're male, because there's nobody who looks like you, nobody's taking the time, we don't reach out. And it's very important that we break that down very quickly. And that's something we've always had pride to work with you. When we were last in DC, Howard University is right next to us as part of it. And that was a very deliberate collaboration, and it was very effective. Climate change is for people of color, and taking action on it is. So I want to do that. But it's also kind of, if you have any reflections on any of those. Okay, so obviously just saying your program is fantastic.
Thank you. I think so maybe a reflection on the one that you said most recently, which is thinking about who is represented in the stories that we tell and in the leaders that are featured. Something that we did in selecting the stories for how we respond was try to be very cognizant of the many different sort of aspects of the stories. So we thought about geography, we thought about the communities that were featured, if there were intersections with things like environmental justice or racism. We wanted to think about the issues that each story covered. So what were the climate impacts that were happening? What were the responses that were happening in the communities? And we tried in getting those stories together in the voices that we featured, both in the written stories and in the videos, to highlight the work of many different people that were a part of those stories. And I think there's always room for us to do better. And I think there's always room for us to tell more stories, which goes to your comment about being a hub or being a portal. We can only tell so many stories through how we respond, but part of other sections of the website, like the resources page and the how you respond page, allows us to highlight the work that is happening elsewhere. And so even though with the stories, we might only be able to get out a few stories a year as the project continues, or stories every couple of years, because it's an intense activity on our part to sort of tell those stories, we can continue to add new resources, new activities in the other sections of the website, so that hopefully we are being helpful as a hub to share that work that others are doing. And in that light, if you have other resources that you think are useful for us to share, please let Alana know so that we can consider those. You know, we don't want to have an overwhelming number and be just sort of a laundry list of everything that's out there. We do try to be thoughtful about the resources that are on there and keep it to a somewhat manageable number. But we definitely want to make sure that we are featuring current resources and current stories as well.
And I'll just point out that the resources tab on the website is sort of the way I think about it, is that's more like climate science resources. And then the how you respond is focused more on communication resources and action resources.
Awesome. Frank, do you have anything? Do you have something to add to that? Another question?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So two quick points. One is I found the YouTube channel that's I think got 10 videos in it. Is that the total 10 videos that you've made?
So there's 9 stories, and then one that is sort of like a teaser overview.
Gotcha. All right, that's perfect, because I see one way we can definitely help is add them to the clean review for next year, because we're just in the final phases of that right now. And then, that's another way we can syndicate that through all our syndication partners. So, and they're, they're right around 5 minutes. So that's perfectly right in the sweet spot for our video length. So that's one. But are you open to media partners where you don't have to actually do the production of the video, but it's more that you're placing these stories in other places? Is that also interesting to you, or does that feel orthogonal? Am I clear enough?
I think we are definitely open to it. It's probably something that just needs a little bit more conversation about specific opportunities.
What I'm trying to get at is that there are media company. This is coming. It's just a matter of time. Yeah. And now would have been great, but it hasn't, not yet. But the trying to get this kind of story through the channels that we can control is always going to get a small fraction of the larger media space because we just don't have those enterprises. But those enterprises are beginning to come looking for these kinds of stories, and you've already kind of built a process and a methodology, and without having to replicate that. So if that's an open side conversation, I'm just, it seems like the answer is yes. So, all right, I got you. Who would be the best person to
Alana.
I see that, Alana. There you go. I like that. It's like right here. Okay, thank you.
Awesome, great discussion. I want to acknowledge that we are up on the hour, so I'll wrap up. I want to thank everyone for being here and just give Alana and Reese last opportunity to share any final thoughts that they might have. All set.
I don't think so. I really appreciate your time and your ideas, and we'll definitely be following up.
Yeah, sounds like there's a good amount of follow-up happen. So I'm excited for that. And thank you everyone for being here. Hope you have a great rest of your day. Thank you, Reese and Alana, for being here. We really appreciate it.
All right.
Thanks.
Bye. Thanks, everyone.
Hey, Gina, did you see?
Yeah,
You saw that?
I just saw you texted me. 9
Yeah.
videos. Let's add the 9 videos.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, Katie, we're having a
I
quick.
was actually going to say something about that as well to Gina. Yeah, 9 might be a lot in one review cycle, but if we add sort of half of them, even, we can do it over 2 review cycles. That's often how we do that big of a chunk like that. So.
Or we look at the 9 and say, there's a gap in our collection around this topic or that topic. We have a great drought here or a great this there, ocean acidification. We kind of got that, if I remember right. So, but there's like biochar or methane capture or tourism or flood. There could be a like the Savannah one, sea level rise Savannah one might be like, it's easy for us to kind of figure out where our natural, and then see how they review. I would imagine they would review well, but you never know.
So, yeah.
I mean, AAAS is a strong partner organization. They have a lot of credibility.
That's the other thing. If we can't ingest all 9 of them, we also just link back to the larger site.
Right.
Like you said, we pick and choose the ones that help fill gaps, and then link back to the larger site on the pages.
Because we have that well, what's it, that last category? I'm gonna have to get back into the categorization of tagging. But that related links thing.
Yeah, the related URLs. Yeah, box.
Yep, related URLs. Yep. Okay, cool. I just wanted to close the loop on that item. You guys all excited about the review?
Gina, do you have that? Did you get that link that they sent directly to the videos? If not, I can grab it and put it in our potential
I have
list.
I have our spreadsheet open right now. I'm just trying to find, there were a lot of links. So I'm just trying to find the right one.
Yeah, they put one that was like specifically to the search that tagged just the stories that had videos with them, which would be what we could ingest. So that would be a good one.
Is it this one? Alana sent at 11:48.
Yeah, that one. Yep.
Okay. I'm in the spreadsheet right now.
Thanks, Gina.
Yep. That's just I thought let's that's an easy action done.
Yep, I agree, and that's what we love, people who present on the clean calls for this kind of things. Then we just take those links and we put them in our potential resources and we look at them for next time. So yeah.
Yep. All right, cool, awesome. All
Looking
right.
forward to seeing you on Thursday, Frank.
I'll be there. And any or how many we doing on Thursday?
A lot. Yeah, 52 on Thursday. No, 52 on Thursday, and 53 on the one on Monday the 13th. So 105 total.
Is the email with all the details of you're covering these and who's lead and who's support and all that stuff, is that in my inbox already?
Yeah, it was there. I sent it late Thursday, so look for that. But if for whatever reason you can't find that, I also have this link I can just put into the chat right now, and it actually has all the documents for both review camps in this Google Drive folder. So you can pull that up and have it open if you want. So it has all that as well.
All right, awesome. Up there. Gotcha. Wow.
And then, so that's the one for Thursday. The email I sent last week, Thursday, is the one for Thursday. And I'll send another email this week, either Thursday or next week on Monday. So it's a week out with the assignments for the next one. So.
Right. I mean, just that Thursday just landed in like a mad rush for me to finish something for the Secretary of Commerce. I was like, I'm still like, you know, bubble, like, you know. Like how
Gina
far
and I
away
were
is the
just
surface
talking
of
about
water?
that. We were just talking about that this morning. It's like when it rains, it pours. We plan these like so far out that, like, for me too, it was just like, oh, that'll be fine. I can totally make that work. And then last week was like, I got all these extra meetings, all these extra requests, and I was down time because we didn't have the childcare. So we were splitting time between Jeremiah and I. And, you know, it's just like, it's always when it's the week you have the most to do that more things get piled on, right?
Yep.
So.
I'll leave you a reference to that. So I was at a high school swim party. We were at a natural lake, and I dove off of a log to go into the water, and my one foot slipped because it was a wet log, and I flipped when I went in, and so I thought, and I dove, I was going up when I was going down. And I went down to the bottom of the lake, and I was digging in this gravel. And I'm like, why does the surface have gravel on it? I was like, oh, usually that's at the bottom of the lake. So turn around and go up, which I thought was down. And I was like, oh, so that's how it is right now. I'm so overloaded. I'm thinking the bottom is the top. I mean, the top is the bottom. Wait, the bottom is, the bottom is the top. I'm like,
yep.
It's a lot, but thank you for giving me this folder, because this shows me how much bleep work setting up the review camps is. Like all the documents have to be generated in order for everyone to know what they're doing.
Yeah. And then on top of that, Frank, the stuff that you don't see a lot of is all the communications between all the people to recruit them. And this year, because we have a lot of new folks, which is great because we have now a really long list of reviewers we can tap into in the future. So it's really great to have a lot of new people. But anytime we have new people, I also have to set them up with the financial system to get paid through CU, which is like a university thing. There's like 3 steps to that, you know, so yeah.
So, you know, there are times when David doesn't totally understand all, like, the cost, like to do all this, and like people will say, oh, just do it this way. I'm like, you don't know what you're talking about. There's so much robustness to this process, and so many details, and so many people playing different roles, and the work that Series does to make all that happen is non-trivial, and to miss that point is like, oh yeah, just add something to review. It's just not how it works.
Yeah,
and there's a reason why it's this robust.
It's a lot, but you don't really know how much it is till you do it yourself sometime. You know what I'm saying? Like Gina and Naomi have learned that the last couple of years. I learned it from Anna however many years ago. So yeah, it's a lot, because then after this, then we go through all the cataloging. And that's the other thing I think, you know, anyways, people ask about resources and they're like, oh, can I get this through the clean review system, you know, and or put it through the review? And I'm like, yeah, but we only do the review camp once a year. So it might take up to a year for us to get through the review. And people are kind of shocked by that a lot of times, you know, why does it take so long? It's like, well, even without the review camp only once per year, it takes us months to get the first and second round review, because everybody's doing it in their own time. They're doing it on the weekends, they're doing it at night, you know, it's not a full-time job. So it's not like they just do it anyways. Yeah.
Well,
you know,
I
you're
fully,
our advocate, which I appreciate.
big time. I will have sit down and listen for a second here. You just sit right back down.